chosen one. Stop scrolling. Pause your breath. Look at this moment carefully. Because you are not here by accident. Something has already begun. And your spirit knows it. You have felt it in the quiet moments when the noise of the world fades. You have sensed it in the restlessness that refuses to let you settle for less. Destiny has already stepped into motion. And whether you acknowledge it or not, it is calling your name right now. You are not like the rest. You never were, even when you tried to blend in. Something inside you resisted. You noticed it early in life. How you saw deeper, felt heavier, and carried questions others never asked. While they were satisfied with comfort, you were haunted by purpose. That was not anxiety. That was not confusion. That was the stirring of something ancient and divine inside you. You were marked before you understood what that mark meant. This message is not random. This is not the algorithm. This is not coincidence. This is divine intervention. Heaven has pressed pause on everything else just to get your attention. You are standing at the edge of a threshold. And you can feel it because your spirit recognizes timing before your mind catches up. Destiny does not knock politely. Destiny disrupts. Destiny interrupts your routines and exposes the emptiness of what once distracted you. You may have tried to outrun it. You may have buried yourself in work, relationships, habits, or noise. But notice this: no matter how far you went, no matter how much you changed your surroundings, the same inner pull followed you. That is because destiny is not a location. It is an assignment. And assignments from God do not expire simply because you ignore them. Every delay, every detour, every closed door was not punishment. It was alignment. The resistance you faced was not evidence that you were wrong. It was proof that you were dangerous to darkness. The weight you have carried was never meant to crush you. It was meant to train you. You have been strengthened in hidden places, forged in silence, sharpened where no applause could distract you. There were nights you cried alone, wondering why life felt harder for you than for others. There were moments you questioned God, asking why the burden was so heavy, why the road was so narrow. But hear this clearly now: heaven never burdens what it has not built. You were constructed for this weight. You were designed to carry what others would drop. You survived seasons that would have broken others because resilience was woven into your spirit. Every unanswered prayer refined your trust. Every tear trained your endurance. God was not absent in those moments. He was reinforcing your foundation, ensuring you could stand steady when destiny finally demanded everything you carry. What felt like isolation was actually insulation. God was protecting you from voices that would dilute your calling. He separated you so your identity could solidify without interference. In the quiet, your strength matured, your discernment sharpened, and your dependence shifted from people to divine direction alone. As was written in the ancient words recorded in the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 31, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." That promise was not written for everyone. It was written for those who are willing to wait, to trust, to rise when everything inside them feels exhausted. That is you. You are still standing, not because you are lucky, but because you are chosen. Right now, something is being awakened. Your awareness is sharpening. Your discernment is increasing. You are beginning to see clearly why certain people could not go with you, why certain doors had to close, why certain versions of you had to die. Destiny demands space. It cannot fully activate while you are still clinging to what no longer fits. Listen carefully, don't do it. No matter the price. Don't go back to what God already pulled you out of. Don't shrink to make others comfortable. Don't silence the call just to keep the peace. You are one decision away from momentum, and you are also one compromise away from delay. This is a sacred moment, and moments like this do not repeat endlessly. If this message is resonating, it is because your spirit is agreeing with truth. This is where I ask you, once, to respond outwardly to what is happening inwardly. Like this message, share it with someone who is also being stirred. Leave a comment declaring that you are present, and subscribe so you stay connected to what is unfolding. This is not about a channel. It is about alignment and accountability to what God is doing in your life right now. You cannot run from destiny because destiny has already found you. The awakening has started. The signal has been sent. And deep down, you know this is only the beginning. At the end of this moment, seal it with faith. Comment the number 777 as a sign that you are ready to rise, ready to walk, ready to soar. You did not wake up one day and accidentally become different. Long before you had language for it, before you could explain why you felt out of place. The mark was already on you. You were set apart quietly, subtly, in ways no one around you could see. But heaven never lost track. While others were being shaped by culture, you were being shaped by calling. There were moments in childhood when you noticed it first. You asked deeper questions. You sensed emotions in rooms others ignored. You felt responsibility without being given authority. That was not imagination. That was early training. God was tuning your perception, teaching you to see beneath surfaces, preparing you to carry insight that would later guide others out of confusion. You often wondered why fitting in felt so unnatural. You tried to adopt the language, the habits, the ambitions of those around you. Yet something always felt misaligned. That discomfort was mercy. If you had blended in too easily, you might have lost yourself completely. Instead, God allowed friction to preserve your identity. He refused to let you disappear into crowds that could not steward what you carried. Being marked does not mean life becomes easier. It means life becomes intentional. Every relationship you formed, every opportunity you touched, every environment you entered began to expose the difference. Some people admired you but kept their distance. Others misunderstood you and projected their fears onto you. Rejection followed you not because you were flawed, but because your presence confronted what others avoided within themselves. You were chosen before you chose. Even your resistance was anticipated. God accounted for your doubts, your fear, your seasons of wandering. Nothing about your journey surprised him. What felt like randomness was actually precision. You were being positioned, not rushed, allowed to grow roots deep enough to survive the winds that would come later. There were times you felt overlooked, passed by, left behind while others advanced. But heaven does not promote prematurely. What you carry requires maturity, restraint, discernment. God withheld certain platforms because exposure without depth would have damaged you. Delay was protection. Obscurity was preparation. Silence was instruction. As the Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 1, Verse 5, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. That declaration was not limited to one man in history. It reveals a pattern of how God works with those he marks. Knowing comes before forming. Setting apart comes before sending. Appointment exists long before announcement. You were known before you were noticed. Chosen before you were qualified. You were observed in private seasons where no one applauded your obedience. Heaven watched how you handled disappointment, temptation, and delay. Those responses mattered more than visible success. God measures faithfulness in hidden places first, because public authority without private integrity collapses under pressure when responsibility increases and scrutiny intensifies. This is why comparison always drained you instead of motivating you. Your timeline was never designed to match theirs. God was shaping endurance, not speed. While others sprinted briefly, you were trained for distance, learning, pacing, discipline, and obedience that sustains purpose long after excitement fades and crowds eventually disappear. Every unanswered question forced you to lean inward and upward. You learned discernment by necessity, not theory. Depending on God became survival, not religion. That dependency rewired your instincts. So now you recognize truth faster, sense danger earlier, and move with wisdom others lack because experience has trained your spirit. Marked ones mature differently. Pressure educates them. Silence teaches them. Delay humbles them. By the time opportunity arrives, character already exists. That is why promotion will not intoxicate you. You have already learned submission, patience, and obedience when no reward followed, faithfulness because humility was formed long before recognition came. This explains why your conscience feels sharper, why compromise weighs heavier on you than on others. You cannot live carelessly without consequence because you were not designed for casual obedience. The calling on your life demands alignment. When you drift, conviction follows quickly, not to condemn you, but to recalibrate you. Correction is proof of sonship, not rejection. You have also noticed that your growth often required solitude, while others found energy in crowds. You were refined in quiet spaces. God taught you to listen before He taught you to speak, to observe before He allowed you to lead. You learned patience the hard way, endurance through repetition, humility through waiting. These were not wasted years. They were investments. Being marked means you are accountable for light. You cannot unsee what God has shown you. You cannot unknow truth once it has settled in your spirit. That is why pretending to be less aware never worked. Your soul refused to shrink. Destiny kept pressing from the inside, reminding you that comfort would never satisfy someone built for purpose. This marking is not a burden meant to exhaust you. It is a seal meant to guide you. It explains your hunger for meaning, your intolerance for shallow living, your attraction to depth over display. You were shaped to influence from substance, not noise. And even now, as understanding increases, something inside you is aligning again, recognizing that what once confused you is beginning to make sense. Chosen one. Now you begin to understand something unsettling but clarifying. The resistance was never random. The pressure did not come because you were weak. It came because you were marked. Opposition is drawn to purpose the way darkness reacts to light. Long before you understood your calling, what stood against you already recognized it. Look back carefully. Every time you stepped closer to growth, confusion increased. When you chose integrity, relationships strained. When you pursued truth, comfort disappeared. That pattern was not coincidence. That was evidence. Resistance is often the earliest confirmation that heaven has invested something valuable inside you. You thought something was wrong with you because life felt harder than it seemed for others. You wondered why progress required more effort, why mistakes carried heavier consequences. But hear this clearly. Now, greater calling brings sharper training. God allows pressure not to punish you, but to prepare you. What He plans to entrust to you later requires stability now. The enemy never wastes resources on empty vessels. Attacks are targeted. Delays are strategic. Confusion is deployed where clarity would be dangerous to darkness. If your life has felt like a battlefield more than a playground, it is because you were never meant to live small. Your spirit was designed for impact, and impact always invites opposition. There were seasons when nothing dramatic happened outwardly, yet inwardly you were exhausted. You fought thoughts no one else heard. You wrestled with doubt, fear, and temptation in silence. Those were not failures. Those were training grounds. Spiritual endurance is not built on stages. It is forged in private wars no one applauds. You also noticed that the resistance often came through people. Misunderstandings, false assumptions, sudden distancing, criticism that felt disproportionate. That was painful, but it was not pointless. God was teaching you discernment. Not everyone who smiles is assigned to walk with you. Not everyone who starts the journey is meant to finish it beside you. There were moments you almost gave up. Not because you lacked faith, but because you were tired of fighting. You asked God why obedience seemed to cost more than compromise. Why doing the right thing felt lonelier than taking shortcuts. But that question itself reveals something important. You were being shaped for leadership, not convenience. According to what is revealed in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 3, verse 12. In fact, everyone who wants to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. That truth reframes everything. Resistance is not a sign you are off course. Often, it is confirmation you are aligned. The path of purpose is narrow not because God wants to limit you, but because focus is required to reach what He prepared. This is why shortcuts never satisfied you, even when compromise seemed easier. Your spirit resisted it. You could not enjoy what violated your conscience. Conviction followed you closely, not to shame you, but to steer you back. God disciplines those He trusts. Correction is evidence of investment. You are beginning to see now that endurance is one of your greatest gifts. You survived what was meant to stop you. You learned to stand when retreat would have been understandable. That strength did not come from yourself alone. Grace carried you when clarity was absent. Mercy held you together when answers were delayed. The resistance also revealed your authority. Every time you refused to quit, something shifted in the unseen. You gained spiritual weight. You learned how to remain steady under pressure. That steadiness will matter later. When others look to you for direction, leaders are not formed by ease, they are forged by adversity. Now comes a moment of response. Not a long declaration, not a dramatic statement, just a simple act of alignment. I want you to comment the words, "I stand firm." This is not just a phrase. It is a declaration that you recognize the resistance was not wasted. It signals that you are choosing endurance over escape, obedience over avoidance, purpose over comfort. When you write it, you are acknowledging that you will no longer interpret pressure as failure, but as preparation. Destiny is not asking you to be fearless. It is asking you to be faithful. Courage is not the absence of resistance, it is the decision to move forward despite it. And right now, as understanding deepens, you are no longer confused by the battle. You are beginning to see its meaning. You were never under attack because you were weak. You were opposed because you were becoming dangerous to stagnation, to darkness, to cycles that needed to end. And this realization changes how you walk forward from here. You now recognize opposition as confirmation, not condemnation. Instead of shrinking, you grow steadier. Instead of questioning worth, you refine obedience. Awareness replaces fear. Wisdom replaces reaction. With this clarity, you stop internalizing attacks and start discerning assignments. Understanding that resistance reveals where breakthrough is forming next in your life. From this point forward, you walk differently through pressure. You no longer beg for ease, but ask for strength. You stop explaining yourself to misaligned voices. Purpose anchors you. Discernment guards you. And endurance becomes your language as destiny accelerates without apology, shaping authority, confidence, clarity, momentum, and unwavering direction. You reached a point where running no longer worked, not because you lacked options, but because every option led you back to the same inner confrontation. You changed environments, you changed routines, you changed people, yet the same questions followed you. The same dissatisfaction surfaced. The same quiet pull returned. That was the moment you began to realize something uncomfortable. Escape was no longer available. Running works for a season. Distraction works temporarily. Numbing works until it doesn't. You can silence the call with noise for a while. But destiny has a way of waiting patiently until the volume drops. When it does, it speaks again, clearer than before. What you thought was restlessness was actually alignment trying to reassert itself. You ran because you were afraid of the cost. You sensed that obedience would demand more than comfort. You knew that saying yes would require surrender, discipline, and change. Running felt safer than commitment, but safety was an illusion. The longer you avoided the call, the heavier life became, not because God was angry, but because misalignment drains strength. Every attempt to reset your life without addressing purpose failed. New beginnings that ignored calling eventually felt hollow. You reached goals that should have satisfied you, yet something was missing. Success without alignment always feels incomplete. You cannot build peace on foundations that ignore why you were created. You told yourself you needed more time, more clarity, more confidence, but deep down, you already knew enough to obey. Delay was not about information, it was about surrender. Running became a way to postpone transformation. But destiny does not negotiate indefinitely. It waits, but it does not withdraw. You may have wondered why peace felt conditional, why joy flickered instead of settling, why rest required effort. These were not emotional issues alone. They were spiritual indicators. Your soul was resisting fragmentation. It was signaling that partial obedience would never satisfy someone designed for wholeness. There is a reason you could not fully enjoy what others found fulfilling. You were not created for detours. God did not design you for borrowed paths. Every time you tried to live a life that looked acceptable but felt empty, something inside you rebelled. That rebellion was holy. It was purpose refusing to be buried. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 9, verse 62, "No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God." That statement is not condemnation, it is clarity. You cannot move forward while constantly negotiating with the past. Destiny requires direction. Looking back divides focus. God was not asking you to be perfect, He was asking you to be committed. Clarity removes excuses. Once you see direction, hesitation becomes a choice. Commitment simplifies decisions because it ends negotiation. You stop revisiting old doors, old versions, old permissions. Forward becomes the only option. This focus does not limit you, it liberates energy, restores momentum, and aligns your will with heaven's intent. Commitment anchors your identity when emotions fluctuate. You learn to obey without constant reassurance. Progress follows consistency, not intensity. Each faithful step compounds strength. Over time, what once required effort becomes instinct. This is how calling matures into authority. And obedience transforms from sacrifice into settled confidence within you always. Running kept you tired, not physically alone, but spiritually. Decision fatigue set in because you were constantly choosing avoidance over alignment. When you finally slowed down enough to notice, you realized the exhaustion lifted whenever you leaned toward obedience. Resistance drained you more than obedience ever did. You also began to see that running did not protect you from pain. It only delayed growth. The lessons you avoided returned in different forms. The conversations you postponed resurfaced later with more weight. Destiny is patient, but it is thorough. What is not confronted willingly will eventually be confronted by necessity. There was a moment, subtle but significant, when you stopped asking how to escape and started asking how to endure. That shift marked maturity. It signaled readiness. God does not reveal the full path to those still searching for exits. He reveals steps to those willing to stay. You are learning now that rest does not come from avoiding responsibility, but from embracing the right one. Peace is not the absence of demand, it is alignment with design. When you walk in what you were built for, even effort feels meaningful. Burden turns into purpose. Weight turns into authority. Running shaped you in ways you did not expect. It taught you what does not work. It exposed false refuges. It exhausted shortcuts. And when those options ran out, what remained was truth. You cannot outrun what was assigned to you before time began. Now you stand with clearer vision, not because everything is easy, but because everything makes sense. The road ahead may still be narrow, but it is no longer confusing. You know why you are here. You know why escape never satisfied you. Destiny was not chasing you to trap you. It was calling you to finally come home. Heaven has been watching you more closely than you realize. Not with suspicion, not with disappointment, but with intention. Every step you took in confusion, every pause you made in fear, every time you stood still when running felt easier, none of it was overlooked. God is not a distant observer. He is a careful keeper of details. And your life has been one long record of moments he never forgot. You may have felt unseen. You may have wondered if your obedience in private mattered at all. Like a seed buried in dark soil. You did the right things without applause. You showed up when no one noticed. You stayed faithful when results were invisible. But seeds do not panic underground. They trust timing. And heaven honors what grows unseen. There were times you felt like a watchman standing alone on the wall, staring into distance while others slept. You warned. You prayed. You discerned shifts before they happened. Yet no one asked you what you saw. That isolation was not rejection. It was assignment. God often stations his chosen where vision is required before agreement exists. You were watched when you chose restraint instead of reaction. When you stayed silent instead of defending yourself. When you walked away instead of proving a point. Those moments felt like losses, but they were deposits. God records obedience the way farmers record seasons, knowing harvest never comes immediately. But it always comes, like a refiner watching gold in fire. Heaven monitored the temperature, not too hot to destroy you, not too cool to leave impurities. Every pressure was measured, every delay calibrated. You were not abandoned in the furnace. You were supervised, and what emerged was stronger, purer, and more valuable than before. You thought you were waiting on God, but much of the time, God was waiting on alignment, not perfection. Alignment, willingness, availability. Heaven does not rush what must last. God builds foundations deeper than visibility because storms reveal construction quality, not intention. As was spoken in the sacred writings of the Psalms, chapter 121, verse 8, "The Lord will watch over your coming and going both now and forevermore." That promise is not poetic exaggeration. It is literal assurance. God watched you leave what was familiar. He watched you enter uncertainty. He guarded exits and entrances you never prayed about because you did not even know they existed. Protection surrounded you when awareness lagged behind mercy. He guarded intersections you never saw, delays that felt accidental, and redirections that felt inconvenient. What you called interruption was interception. God blocked paths that would have drained you and opened corridors you were not yet mature enough to recognize. Only later do you see how mercy disguised itself as timing, restraint, and unseen boundaries protecting your future ahead now. Looking back, patterns emerge like constellations once the sky darkens. Random moments connect. Near misses reveal purpose. You realize survival was not luck, but guidance. Every preserved breath carried assignment. Every escape from harm carried instruction. God was editing outcomes while you were learning obedience, ensuring destiny advanced without announcing itself prematurely through seasons unseen by human understanding alone still. Protection did not remove pain, but it limited damage. You were allowed lessons, not destruction. The boundary lines held even when emotions crossed them. God permitted pressure without permitting collapse. This balance is love in motion. It proves that destiny was never fragile, even when you felt vulnerable, uncertain, and overwhelmed by circumstances beyond your control and understanding at times. Now you are beginning to see patterns, closed doors that redirected you, delays that saved you, relationships that ended before they could damage destiny. Heaven was editing your path quietly, The way an author removes unnecessary chapters so the story can move forward with power and clarity. This message exists because someone else's obedience made it possible. Voices like this require time, prayer, and resources. If this word is feeding you, strengthening you, or confirming what God is doing in your life, respond with gratitude. Like the message. Share it with someone who needs encouragement. Subscribe so you stay connected as the journey unfolds. And if you are able, consider giving not out of pressure, but partnership. Donation is not payment for truth, it is participation in spreading it. Think of it like oil poured into a lamp so the light can reach farther. Even small offerings matter when given sincerely. What you support grows, and what grows feeds many beyond you. God watches how you respond to provision as much as how you endure lack. Generosity trains trust. It reminds your heart that supply flows through you, not just to you. When you give with understanding, you align yourself with movement rather than consumption. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not unseen. Heaven has been watching carefully, waiting for the moment when preparation meets readiness. That moment is closer than you think. What you sow now, attention, obedience, generosity, becomes momentum later. Continue forward with confidence. You are being guided, guarded, and positioned. And even when you cannot trace God's hand, you can trust His watchful eye. There is a season every chosen one must walk through where the path narrows and the crowd thins. This is not abandonment. This is design. Chosen ones walk alone, first, because authority is forged in solitude, not consensus. Before God entrusts you with influence, He teaches you how to stand without affirmation. Loneliness has followed you not because something is wrong with you, but because something is being formed in you. You were separated before you were celebrated. While others were affirmed early, you were refined quietly. God removed noise so you could hear clearly. He reduced voices so His would become unmistakable. You often wondered why support disappeared right when you needed it most. Why conversations ended when you spoke truth. Why companionship faded when you refused to compromise. But solitude is not absence, it is assignment. God was training you to rely on conviction rather than applause. In isolation, your motives were exposed. You learned why you obey. You learned whether you needed approval or alignment. When no one was watching, when no one was clapping, you still chose integrity. That choice mattered more than any visible achievement. Heaven measures differently than people do. Walking alone also revealed who you are without mirrors, without comparison, without competition. You stopped performing. You stopped pretending. You began confronting yourself honestly. Weakness surfaced. Fear spoke louder. Doubt questioned everything. And yet, grace met you there. God does His deepest work when distractions are removed. This is where your discernment sharpened. You learned to recognize peace versus excitement. You learned the difference between opportunity and assignment. Many doors looked good but felt wrong. Many paths promised speed but lacked substance. Solitude taught you patience, and patience taught you wisdom. You were not isolated to be emptied. You were isolated to be filled correctly. God poured understanding into you slowly, intentionally, ensuring you could carry revelation without pride. Truth given too early can crush character. So heaven waited until humility took root. As we are reminded through the ancient words recorded in the book of Proverbs, chapter 18, verse 1, whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. This verse reveals a distinction. There is selfish isolation, and there is sacred separation. You were not withdrawn to escape responsibility. You were withdrawn to receive it. God did not remove you from people to harden you, but to prepare you to love without dependency and lead without control. Sacred separation refines intention. It removes emotional dependency, so obedience becomes pure. You learn to love people without needing them to validate you. This is how leadership is born. Control dissolves when trust deepens. You stop clinging, start serving freely, and lead from stability rather than fear. In that space, God retrained your posture. You learn to listen without rushing, to respond without reacting. Authority matured quietly. When people return, you will not grasp them for strength. You will offer strength instead. That shift proves separation succeeded, producing leaders who empower, not dominate or depend. Walking alone forced you to confront God directly. You could no longer hide behind group faith, borrowed convictions, or shared enthusiasm. Your relationship became personal. Prayer deepened. Listening increased. Obedience became internal rather than performative. This is also where endurance was built. Without encouragement, you learned consistency. Without reassurance, you learned trust. You discovered that faith is not sustained by emotion, but by decision. That lesson will stabilize you later when pressure multiplies and opinions surround you again. You may not realize it yet, but this lonely road is temporary. God never isolates permanently. He isolates purposefully. After solitude comes stewardship. After refinement comes responsibility. But those transitions only succeed if solitude was honored rather than resented. Many fail this stage because they rush to escape it. They fill the quiet with noise. They replace growth with distraction. But you stayed, even when it hurt, even when it was confusing. That willingness marks you as ready. Now you are emerging with clarity. You know who you are without needing constant validation. You know what you carry without needing permission. That confidence is quiet but unshakable. It does not announce itself. It simply stands. This is where God begins to reintroduce people carefully. Not crowds, but connections. Not admirers, but allies. Those who join you later will benefit from the strength built now. And you will not lean on them improperly because you already learned how to stand alone. Before we move forward, I want you to mark this moment. Not loudly, not dramatically, just intentionally. Comment the number 414. This number represents alignment during separation. It is a signal that you understand why the lonely road existed and that you no longer resent the process. By commenting it, you are acknowledging that solitude shaped you, strengthened you, and prepared you for what comes next. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are simply being built where few are willing to stay. And now, the strength gained there will carry you forward with stability, humility, and authority. What comes next will test a different part of you. Not your endurance, not your patience, but your discernment in motion. After seasons of silence, movement feels loud. After solitude, interaction feels intense. You are re-entering spaces with new eyes, and you must learn how to walk forward without losing what was formed within you. You are not the same person who entered isolation. Your inner structure has changed. You no longer rush to be understood. You no longer explain yourself unnecessarily. You have learned the power of restraint, the authority of stillness, and the wisdom of timing. Now, the challenge is not becoming strong, but remaining grounded while strength is used. God does not bring you out of hiding to return you to noise. He brings you out to establish order. What you carry now is meant to stabilize environments, not absorb them. You are called to be present without being consumed, available without being drained, compassionate without being compromised. This season requires balance. You will feel the pull to overextend, to prove growth, to compensate for time spent unseen. Resist that urge. Maturity does not announce itself. It moves deliberately. The fruit of isolation is not urgency, but clarity. You know when to speak. You know when to step back. You know when silence still serves the moment. You will notice that some people are drawn to you without knowing why. Your presence feels grounded to them. Your words carry weight. Your calm disrupts chaos. This is not charisma. This is authority formed without performance. But with that attraction comes responsibility. You must learn to offer direction without control, guidance without dependence. There will also be disappointment. Some connections will not align with who you are now. Some expectations will clash with your boundaries. This does not mean you are failing. It means growth is real. When seasons change, compatibility shifts. You are allowed to honor what was while still releasing what no longer fits. You are stepping into a phase where wisdom must be practiced, not just possessed. Knowledge unused becomes pride. Discernment unused becomes hesitation. God gives understanding so it can be applied. Movement will reveal whether your solitude produced humility or isolation of the heart. This is where obedience matures. You are no longer obeying because you are afraid to disobey. You are obeying because you trust God's order. Alignment has replaced anxiety. You move with intention rather than reaction. You are learning how to lead yourself before being entrusted with leading others. You may feel the tension between caution and courage. Isolation taught you to protect what is sacred. Purpose now asks you to release some of that protection in measured ways. This does not mean recklessness. It means faith expressed through action, trust expressed through obedience. As was spoken through the prophet Micah, chapter 6, verse 8, He has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. That verse becomes a compass in this season. Justice governs your decisions. Mercy softens your delivery. Humility anchors your posture. You do not move forward demanding recognition. You move forward committed to integrity. You are not here to be elevated quickly. You are here to be established firmly. Walking humbly does not mean shrinking. It means staying teachable. It means listening even when you have insight. It means remembering that authority grows best in soil watered by submission. You submit not because you lack strength, but because you understand order. You will also encounter moments where you are tempted to return to isolation for comfort. Familiar quiet will call you back. But isolation has completed its assignment. Staying there too long would no longer be obedience. It would be avoidance. Wisdom knows when a season has fulfilled its purpose. This stage will feel unfamiliar because it requires you to trust what was built rather than keep building. You must allow formation to function. The muscles developed in silence must now carry weight in motion. This is where confidence becomes necessary. Not arrogance, but assurance rooted in preparation. You are learning that calling is not proven by how much you endure, but by how faithfully you steward what you have been given. Faithfulness now looks like consistency, not intensity. Presence, not pressure. Reliability, not reaction. You will move slower than others expect, and that is intentional. Depth moves deliberately. You are no longer driven by urgency. You are guided by clarity. That clarity will protect you as responsibility increases and visibility expands. This is not the climax. This is stabilization. The ground beneath you is firming. The shaking has reduced, not because challenges are gone, but because you are steadier. You are no longer questioning whether you belong on this path. You are learning how to walk it well. What was shaped in hidden places is now being tested in visible ones, and you are ready. Not because you are flawless, but because you are aligned. There comes a moment when understanding sharpens into truth, and truth removes alternatives. This is that moment. Destiny is not optional. It was never an invitation you could politely decline. It is an assignment bound to your existence, woven into your breath, encoded into your design. You can negotiate timing, but not purpose. You can resist seasons, but not calling. You have already tested this reality. Every time you attempted to live a reduced version of your life, something inside you pushed back. Comfort felt hollow. Ease felt restless. Even success felt strangely incomplete. That was not ingratitude. That was misalignment. Your soul refused to celebrate what did not match its assignment. Optional paths always felt tempting at first. They promised relief, approval, normalcy. They whispered that you could be like everyone else, that you could live quietly, unnoticed, unburdened. But every time you leaned into those options, peace withdrew, not dramatically, but steadily. Joy thinned, motivation dulled, life lost color. Destiny was reminding you that you cannot thrive where you do not belong. You were not created for spiritual neutrality. Standing still is not stability for someone designed to move with purpose. What feels like rest to others becomes stagnation to you. God built you with momentum in mind. When that momentum is resisted, friction increases. That friction is not cruelty. It is correction. You once believed destiny would feel like excitement alone. But destiny often feels like pressure before it feels like fulfillment. Responsibility comes before recognition. Weight precedes authority. God does not hand crowns to those still asking if they want the responsibility of carrying one. Destiny demands decision, not preference. You may have asked why your life did not allow you to drift comfortably, why ignoring purpose felt heavier than pursuing it. The answer is simple but sobering. You were entrusted with something that cannot be wasted. God does not force destiny on everyone, but those he marks are constrained by calling. Freedom for you is found inside obedience, not outside it. You are discovering that disobedience costs you more than obedience ever did. Avoidance drained your energy. Compromise blurred your clarity. Delay weakened your confidence. Meanwhile, even small steps of alignment restored strength. This is how you know destiny is not optional. Your spirit responds immediately to truth because it recognizes home. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16, verse 24, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." That statement dismantles the illusion of convenience. Destiny is not about self-expression alone, it is about self-denial aligned with eternal purpose. The cross represents weight, commitment, and direction. You do not carry it accidentally. You choose it because you understand that following costs less than resisting. This realization brings sobriety, not fear. You stop romanticizing escape. You stop fantasizing about alternate lives. You begin to respect the gravity of what you carry. Maturity arrives when you no longer ask if destiny will be hard, but whether you are willing to be faithful. You also stop envying paths that look easier. You recognize that every calling carries its own burden, and yours carries authority with it. What God has placed on your life requires backbone, not convenience. You were never meant to skim surfaces. You were built to go deep, to carry truth, to stand firm when others waver. Destiny being non-optional does not mean God is harsh. It means He is precise. He does not confuse you with endless choices. He narrows your focus so your strength is not divided. A river becomes powerful not by spreading wide, but by being constrained within its banks. You are learning now to respect constraint. Boundaries no longer feel like punishment, they feel like guidance. Discipline feels less like restriction and more like protection. Saying no becomes easier when you understand what your yes is protecting. There is relief hidden inside this truth. When destiny is not optional, you stop blaming yourself for not fitting into lives that were never designed for you. You stop forcing doors that were never meant to open. You stop apologizing for depth in shallow environments. Acceptance brings rest. This is where clarity replaces confusion. You do not know every detail of what lies ahead, but you know enough to move forward without bargaining. Destiny does not require you to see the entire road. It requires you to commit to the direction. You are no longer asking if you can walk away. You are asking how to walk forward well. That shift marks readiness. Destiny is no longer chasing you. You are no longer fleeing it. You are standing face to face with truth, grounded, aware, and sober-minded. This is not loss of freedom. This is the discovery of it. When destiny is no longer optional, purpose becomes stable, identity becomes anchored, and life stops feeling like a series of experiments. You are not searching anymore. You are aligning, and alignment is where strength finally settles. There is a price attached to every calling, and this is the part few speak about honestly. Saying no to destiny is not neutral. It does not leave you unchanged. It slowly erodes clarity, drains conviction, and dulls discernment. The cost is rarely paid all at once. It is collected quietly, over time, through hesitation and avoidance. You were never meant to live divided. When you resisted alignment, you felt it internally first. Focus weakened, motivation scattered, decisions became heavier than they should have been. That was not laziness. That was friction between who you are becoming and who you were pretending to be. Destiny does not punish refusal, but it does withdraw its energy. You noticed that when you ignored conviction, peace faded. When you delayed obedience, confidence thinned. The world did not fall apart, but something essential went quiet inside you. That silence was not relief. It was warning. God often speaks loudest through discomfort when alignment is being compromised. The cost of saying no is rarely dramatic. It looks like stagnation instead of collapse. It feels like confusion instead of chaos. You keep functioning, but momentum disappears. You move, but without progress. Life becomes maintenance rather than mission. This is how destiny reminds you that you were built for more. You may have told yourself you were protecting yourself, avoiding pain, avoiding exposure, avoiding responsibility. But avoidance has its own cost. What you do not confront grows heavier. What you delay becomes more complex. What you refuse to carry willingly will eventually burden you unwillingly. There is also a spiritual cost. Discernment dulls when repeatedly ignored. Sensitivity fades when conviction is silenced too often. Not because God leaves, but because your awareness weakens. Alignment sharpens perception. Resistance blurs it. This is why obedience restores clarity faster than rest ever could. You are not condemned for hesitation. Grace accounted for your fear. But grace was never meant to excuse stagnation. It was meant to empower movement. God does not pressure you, but He does warn you. He reminds you that delay is not harmless for someone carrying responsibility. Grace meets you where you are, but it never agrees to leave you there. It strengthens weak resolve and steadies shaking steps. Grace does not shame hesitation, it heals it. Yet once healed, it calls you forward. Because remaining still after restoration becomes a different choice entirely. Warning is not rejection, it is care expressed firmly. God warns what He values. Responsibility increases sensitivity. What others delay casually, you cannot. Not because you are weaker, but because you are entrusted. Awareness brings accountability, and accountability is proof that destiny still considers you capable, trusted, and needed now. As the ancient words recorded in the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 38, declare, "But my righteous one will live by faith, and I take no pleasure in the one who shrinks back." That verse is sobering, not threatening. Shrinking back is not rebellion, it is retreat. It is choosing safety over obedience. And while God remains faithful, shrinking back limits what He can do through you in that season. Destiny does not force itself forward against continual resistance. You may recognize now that the heaviest seasons were not when life attacked you, but when you avoided what you knew to do. Disobedience exhausted you more than obedience ever did. Carrying avoidance required constant justification. Carrying obedience required courage, but it produced peace. There is mercy here. Awareness means opportunity still exists. Conviction means the door is not closed. If destiny were finished with you, you would feel nothing. The fact that this message stirs you means alignment is still available. The cost of saying no is never worth the comfort it promises. Comfort fades quickly. Purpose sustains. You were not designed to manage life quietly. You were designed to move it forward faithfully. When you say yes, even trembling, grace meets you immediately. Now comes a moment of response, not to pressure you, but to anchor intention. I want you to comment the words I choose forward. This phrase is short because the decision must be clear. It is not about having every answer. It is about direction. When you write it, you are acknowledging that you understand the cost of delay and are choosing progress over retreat. You are declaring movement, even if the steps are small. Destiny does not require perfection. It requires willingness. The moment you stop shrinking back, strength returns, clarity sharpens, momentum resumes. You do not need to outrun fear. You only need to stop letting it decide. The cost of saying no has been revealed, so you no longer pay it unknowingly. From here forward, obedience becomes lighter because understanding has increased. You are not being rushed. You are being reminded. Destiny is still calling, and now you know what it costs to ignore it. You are standing at a line that cannot be uncrossed, not because God is rushing you, but because awareness has reached fullness. Neutral ground no longer exists here. You have seen too much, understood too much, and grown too much to pretend otherwise. This is the moment where clarity demands alignment, and hesitation loses its disguise. Think of a bridge built halfway across a river. Once you reach the center, turning back requires as much effort as moving forward. That is where you are now. The old shore no longer feels safe, but the new shore still feels unfamiliar. This tension is not confusion. It is transition, and transitions are holy when guided by truth. You are crossing a line internally before anything changes externally. Decisions are settling. Convictions are hardening. What once felt optional now feels necessary. This is how destiny activates, not with noise, but with resolve. Quiet resolve is stronger than loud promises. There was a time when you could drift without consequence. That time has passed, not because grace is gone, but because responsibility has increased. When you carry awareness, indecision costs more. God is not angry with you for reaching this point. He is trusting you with clarity because He knows you can handle it. Crossing this line means certain things will no longer satisfy you. Conversations that circle but never move forward will feel exhausting. Habits that once distracted you will feel empty. Environments that tolerated stagnation will begin to irritate your spirit. This is not arrogance. It is alignment rejecting compromise. Imagine a compass finally settling after long movement. That stillness is not stagnation. It is direction locking in. You are experiencing that settling now. The shaking has reduced because the direction has been chosen internally. Even if execution takes time, crossing this line does not mean you suddenly feel brave. It means fear no longer gets the final vote. Courage is not loud here. It is steady. It wakes up each day and chooses the same direction again. Even when emotions fluctuate, you may grieve what cannot follow you. That grief is human. Release always carries weight. But you are not losing identity. You are shedding excess, like a traveler discarding heavy baggage to finish the journey. You are learning what is essential and what is sentimental. You are not abandoning the past. You are honoring it by not dragging it forward. Gratitude allows release without bitterness. What shaped you can be appreciated without being carried. This distinction frees your hands for what is ahead, ensuring memories inform wisdom rather than burden movement or dictate future direction. Excess weight often feels familiar, even comforting, because it once served survival. But survival seasons end. Carrying unnecessary weight into promise slows progress and strains strength. Letting go is not loss, it is obedience to timing, trusting that provision meets motion, not hesitation, and guides steps once faith replaces fear. Some attachments argue they are harmless, but they occupy space meant for calling. Sentiment can quietly sabotage obedience. Discernment asks not whether something is bad, but whether it belongs ahead. Purpose demands room. Clearing space is an act of trust, not rejection, allowing alignment to breathe and direction to advance. Travel lighter now, not empty, but intentional. What remains should strengthen resolve, not compete with it. Destiny accelerates when weight is managed wisely. You are learning stewardship of your inner life, choosing what fuels endurance and releasing what drains momentum. So progress stays sustainable, focused, and faithful through seasons ahead. As the ancient words recorded in the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9, declare, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." That promise meets you at the line. Strength is required because movement follows. Courage is required because familiarity is ending. But presence is guaranteed. God does not call you across lines. He refuses to cross with you. This message exists to steady you in this moment. Voices like this are lamps along the path, not the destination, but guidance when the terrain feels unfamiliar. If this word is helping you see clearly, take a moment to respond practically. Like the message, so it can reach others standing at similar thresholds. Share it with someone who is quietly wrestling with direction. Subscribe to stay connected as the journey continues unfolding. And if you feel led, consider supporting this work through donation, not as obligation, but as agreement. Think of it like adding wood to a fire that is already warming many. Your support helps keep the flame visible for those still walking in the dark, searching for confirmation they are not alone. Crossing this line also means trusting provision differently. You stop clinging to what feels safe and start leaning into what is faithful. God often supplies differently on the other side. New terrain brings new resources, but only after movement begins. You are not reckless for stepping forward. You are responding. Destiny rarely announces itself with certainty. It reveals itself through obedience. Each step clarifies the next. Light moves as you move. This is not the end of struggle, but it is the end of indecision. And that alone brings relief. When direction is chosen, energy returns, focus sharpens, the soul exhales. You are crossing into responsibility, not pressure, into purpose, not performance, into alignment, not anxiety. The line was always there. You were simply being prepared to see it clearly. Now that you see it, you will not pretend it is not there. You will step forward with humility, courage, and trust, knowing that heaven is not watching from a distance, but walking with you into what comes next. At this stage, you are discovering a difficult truth. Not everything that brought you this far can go any further. Old versions of you cannot follow where destiny is leading. This is not punishment. It is order. Growth always creates distance between who you were and who you are becoming. And that distance must be honored. You tried, at first, to bring everything with you. Old habits, old coping mechanisms, old identities that once helped you survive. But survival tools are rarely suitable for purpose seasons. What protected you in the past may now restrict you. What once kept you afloat may now weigh you down. This is why familiar patterns began to feel uncomfortable. Reactions that once felt justified now feel misaligned. Words you used to speak casually now feel heavy in your mouth. Environments you once tolerated now drain you quickly. These are not random sensitivities. They are signals that an internal upgrade has occurred. You are not becoming someone else, you are becoming more yourself. The truest version of you has less tolerance for fragmentation. Integrity is no longer optional. Consistency matters more. You feel internal resistance when you act beneath what you now understand. That resistance is not shame. It is alignment protecting itself. There is grief here, even if you do not name it. Letting go of old versions means releasing familiarity. It means admitting that certain seasons are over for good. It means accepting that you cannot return to who you were. Even if that version felt simpler, simplicity that ignores truth is not peace. It is avoidance. You may feel tempted to revisit old patterns when pressure increases. Stress often calls us back to what once soothed us. But those comforts no longer work the same way. They leave you emptier than before. That is because your capacity has changed. What once distracted you can no longer satisfy you. This is where discipline deepens. Not the discipline of restriction, but the discipline of honesty. You begin asking better questions. Not can I, but should I. Not is this allowed, but does this align. That shift marks maturity. Alignment becomes your filter, not convenience. As the Spirit spoke through the Apostle Paul in his letter to the Ephesians, chapter 4, verse 22, you were taught, with regard to your former way of life, to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires. That instruction is not harsh. It is freeing. The old self is not condemned, it is released. You are not asked to hate who you were, only to stop living from that place. Deceitful desires do not always look sinful. Sometimes they look familiar, comfortable, and justified, but they still corrupt forward movement. You are learning that maturity requires separation, not from people alone, but from identities that no longer fit. You cannot keep explaining yourself through past wounds. You cannot keep reacting from outdated fears. You cannot keep defining yourself by chapters that have already closed. This is why accountability matters more now. You notice quickly when you slip. Conviction arrives sooner. Course correction happens faster. God is not tightening the leash, He is sharpening your awareness. Precision increases as responsibility increases. You are also realizing that not everyone recognizes the new boundaries you carry. Some will try to interact with you as if nothing has changed. That does not mean they are wrong, it means seasons differ. You are allowed to adjust access without resentment. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates. The most challenging release is often internal, letting go of the version of you that needed approval, letting go of the version that over-explained, letting go of the version that survived by shrinking or pleasing. Those strategies once protected you, but they cannot lead you. There is relief on the other side of this shedding, less inner conflict, fewer justifications, clearer decisions. When old versions fall away, energy consolidates, focus strengthens. You begin moving with fewer internal negotiations. This does not mean you never struggle. It means struggle no longer defines you. You do not spiral the way you once did. You recover faster. You respond instead of react. Growth becomes visible not through perfection, but through stability. You are honoring your past by not remaining there. You are respecting the work God has done by allowing it to change you fully. Partial transformation creates tension. Full surrender brings peace. Old versions cannot follow because they were built for different battles. You are not dishonoring them by releasing them. You are acknowledging that the war has shifted and the equipment must change. This is not loss. This is refinement. And refinement always precedes authority. You are stepping forward lighter, clearer, and more aligned, not because you rejected who you were, but because you accepted who you are now becoming. You have reached a checkpoint. Not a pause, but a question. Heaven is asking for a response. Not someday. Not eventually. But now. This is not about pressure. This is about alignment. Moments like this appear quietly, yet they carry weight. They divide seasons. They separate intention from decision. You have felt this tension building, a sense that waiting has shifted from wisdom to hesitation. What once felt like preparation now feels like delay. This is how you know you are standing at a threshold. Preparation no longer excuses inaction. Readiness is no longer theoretical. It is being tested by movement. God does not demand answers loudly. He invites responses clearly. The checkpoint you are standing at is internal before it becomes visible. No one else may notice it, but you do. Your conscience is alert. Your discernment is active. You sense that neutrality is no longer honest. This is where many misunderstand God's patience. Patience is not permission to remain undecided. It is mercy giving you time to choose well. But once clarity arrives, patience shifts into expectation. Heaven waits, but it also watches. You are being asked to respond to what you already know, not what you hope to discover later, not what you are waiting to feel ready for, what you already understand. Revelation carries responsibility. Insight demands stewardship. There were earlier seasons when uncertainty was genuine. You truly did not know. This is not that season. Now you know enough to move. Even if you do not know everything, faith is rarely about full information. It is about honest response. You may feel fear here. That is normal. Fear does not disqualify you. Avoidance does. Courage is not required to feel calm. It is required to act with clarity despite emotion. God is not waiting for you to feel fearless. He is waiting for you to be faithful. This checkpoint is also merciful because it prevents drift. Without moments like this, people slowly slide into stagnation while convincing themselves they are being careful. God interrupts that slide with clarity. He brings things into focus, so choice becomes unavoidable. You might be tempted to bargain, to offer partial obedience, to delay with spiritual language. But heaven sees through negotiation. God is not interested in your excuses. He is invested in your future. He does not shame you here. He steadies you. Negotiation often disguises fear as wisdom. You call it waiting, but heaven calls it hesitation. Partial obedience comforts the flesh while starving purpose. God is not impressed by spiritual delay dressed as prudence. He is patient, yes, but also precise. He steadies you by stripping away excuses, not to expose weakness, but to clear vision. What he asks is simple: stop bargaining, start trusting, and move with the light you already have. This moment defines direction and determines spiritual momentum. As the voice of Scripture speaks through the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 30, verse 19, "This day I call the heavens and the earth as witnesses against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life, so that you and your children may live." That declaration reveals God's heart. Choice matters. Direction matters. Response matters. God lays paths before you, but He does not walk them for you. Choosing life is not merely avoiding harm, it is embracing alignment. This checkpoint is not about perfection, it is about sincerity. God responds to honest yeses more than polished promises. He moves with those who step forward, trembling but willing. You are not being rushed into loss. You are being invited into clarity. Saying yes here may require letting go of delay, comfort, or control, but it also releases momentum, provision, and peace that hesitation has blocked. Notice how your spirit reacts even now. There is a seriousness settling in, but also relief. Decision reduces anxiety. Indecision feeds it. When direction is chosen, energy returns. Focus sharpens. The soul steadies. You are not alone at this checkpoint. Many chosen ones reach it, but not all respond. Some retreat into delay. Others rationalize waiting. But those who respond discover that God meets movement with strength. This is not about announcing anything publicly. It is about marking something privately. Heaven honors internal decisions long before they produce visible outcomes. What you choose here will quietly reorder what comes next. Before we move forward, I want you to mark this response intentionally. Comment the number 888. This number represents decision aligned with eternity. It signifies completion of preparation and readiness for movement. By commenting it, you are acknowledging that you recognize this checkpoint and are choosing alignment over delay, response over hesitation, faith over comfort. You are not being tested to fail. You are being invited to advance. God does not set checkpoints to stop you. He sets them to guide you. And now that you see it clearly, your response carries weight. Whatever follows will unfold step by step. You are not required to see far ahead. You are only asked to choose well here. Heaven is attentive. Grace is present. And the moment you respond, momentum begins to shift. The crown you are moving toward is not placed gently. It is forged, not handed. Authority is not bestowed without refinement. And refinement is rarely comfortable. This is the stage where pressure increases, not because you are failing, but because you are nearing readiness. Fire always appears before responsibility expands. You may have expected clarity to bring ease. Instead, it brought intensity. Decisions feel weightier. Convictions feel sharper. Tolerance for compromise has nearly vanished. This is not imbalance. This is refinement doing its work. Fire does not destroy what is real, it reveals it. Refinement exposes motives. It asks why you want what you say you want. It strips ambition of ego and leaves only obedience. Anything driven by recognition begins to burn away. Anything rooted in fear begins to surface. Fire is honest. It does not negotiate. It reveals what can remain and what must go. You are discovering that spiritual authority carries heat. Influence attracts resistance. Visibility increases scrutiny. Weight brings pressure. God does not place crowns on untested heads because collapse would follow. So he allows fire first, not to harm you, but to prepare you to stand without buckling. This season may feel relentless. Just when you think one lesson has settled, another emerges. Just when you feel steady, another challenge tests that steadiness. This is not chaos. This is layering. God builds capacity in stages, allowing strength to compound rather than overwhelm you all at once. Fire also clarifies identity. You stop defining yourself by outcomes and start defining yourself by obedience. Success no longer intoxicates you. Failure no longer devastates you. You begin to move from a deeper center. Stability replaces reaction. Presence replaces performance. There may be moments when you wonder if the pressure will ever ease. You ask yourself if this intensity is sustainable. The answer is not found in escape, but in transformation. Fire changes structure. Once refined, what once required pressure can endure weight with less strain. This process also burns away false timelines. You stop demanding immediate results. You start valuing depth over speed. Fire teaches patience because it cannot be rushed. Trying to hurry refinement only prolongs it. Yielding shortens the process. You may notice that distractions lose their appeal here. Shallow comfort no longer satisfies. Entertainment that once numbed you now irritates you. This is because fire heightens sensitivity. You are being tuned to carry discernment without distortion. As was spoken in the first letter of Peter, chapter 1, verse 7, "These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed." That verse reframes the fire. It reveals value, not rejection. Gold is refined because it is precious, not disposable. Faith is tested because it is powerful, not weak. Fire is not a sign that you are losing favor. It is evidence that you are trusted with more. You are also learning restraint here. Fire teaches you when not to speak, when not to react, when not to move prematurely. Silence becomes strategic. Waiting becomes strength. You realize that not every battle is yours to fight, and not every opinion deserves your energy. This is where emotional maturity is forged. You feel deeply, but you are no longer led by feeling. You care, but you do not collapse under care. You hold compassion without losing clarity. This balance only forms under heat. Some relationships will not survive this stage. Fire exposes incompatibility. People who thrived on your old access may resist your new boundaries. This is painful, but necessary. Crowns require solitude of loyalty. Divided allegiance cracks under pressure. You may grieve what burns away, but you will not miss it later. What remains will be lighter, purer, and aligned. Fire simplifies. It removes excess so strength can concentrate. This is not about becoming harder. It is about becoming truer. Fire does not strip tenderness, it removes fragility. You emerge with empathy that does not compromise truth, and authority that does not need to dominate. The crown comes with fire because leadership without refinement harms both the carrier and those they serve. God protects you by refining you. He protects others by not releasing you too soon. You are not meant to enjoy this stage. You are meant to endure it with trust. Endurance here produces depth that cannot be imitated. No shortcut can replicate refinement. No imitation can replace fire-formed authority. When this season passes, you will notice something subtle but profound. The pressure that once overwhelmed you will no longer intimidate you. What used to feel heavy will feel manageable. You will not feel superior. You will feel steady. Fire does not announce when it is finished. You realize it only in hindsight. When you notice that you are no longer reacting the way you used to, you are no longer shaken by what once rattled you. You are standing where you once struggled. The crown is coming, but it will rest on a head strengthened by heat, not inflated by ego. And when it does, you will carry it without being consumed by it, because fire already taught you how to stand. By now, you are realizing something essential. The weight you carry was never accidental. It did not arrive because you were careless or unlucky. It came because you were constructed to bear it. Others might have buckled under the same pressure, but you remained standing, not untouched, not unmarked, but unbroken. That endurance is evidence of design. You once questioned why responsibility seemed to find you early, why people leaned on you before you felt ready, why expectations followed you even when you tried to stay unnoticed. But weight gravitates towards strength, not visible strength, but structural strength, the kind that holds when stress is applied. God saw that in you long before you recognized it yourself. Being built for weight does not mean you never struggle. It means struggle does not disqualify you. You bend, but you do not collapse. You feel strain, but you adapt, like steel tempered under heat. Pressure changed your composition. What once overwhelmed you now instructs you. You are learning that capacity is not proven by how much you avoid, but by how much you can hold without losing integrity. You have held grief without bitterness, responsibility without resentment, authority without arrogance. That balance did not come naturally. It was learned through experience that shaped you quietly. There were moments you wished God had chosen someone else, someone stronger, someone more confident, someone less sensitive. But sensitivity is not weakness when paired with obedience. It is discernment. It allows you to feel weight without becoming hardened by it. God did not miscalculate when He entrusted you. You were trained by exposure, by carrying things before you understood them, by being trusted early and corrected often. That training was uncomfortable, but it expanded you. Capacity grows when stretched responsibly. God stretched you, then strengthened you, then stretched you again. This is why comparison never worked in your favor. You were measuring yourself against people built for different loads. Their pace, their tolerance, their priorities were not designed to match yours. Your calling required depth. Depth requires weight, and weight requires reinforcement. You are no longer surprised when difficulty arrives. You have learned to ask better questions. Not why is this happening, but what is this developing? That shift signals maturity. Weight becomes instruction rather than interruption. As the ancient words recorded in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 2, declare, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you." That promise does not remove the waters. It redefines the outcome. Passing through assumes movement, not avoidance. Survival is not the goal. Emergence is. God did not promise absence of weight. He promised presence within it. You are discovering that strength does not always feel powerful. Sometimes it feels like showing up again when you are tired, like choosing restraint when reaction would be easier, like carrying responsibility quietly without recognition. That is strength refined beyond display. Being built for weight also means knowing when to set things down. You are learning discernment in responsibility. What is yours to carry and what is not. Strength does not mean saying yes to everything. It means stewarding capacity wisely so you do not fracture under unnecessary load. You have learned this the hard way. By carrying what was not assigned, by absorbing what should have been shared, by confusing compassion with responsibility. But those lessons refined you. Now you carry with intention, not obligation. This season confirms something deeply personal. God trusted you correctly. He saw beyond your hesitation, beyond your insecurity, beyond your fear. He saw what you could become under pressure, and he allowed weight to shape you into that person. You no longer resent the weight. You respect it. You understand that it trained you to listen closely, decide carefully, and move deliberately. Light lives cannot steward heavy truth. God gave you weight because he planned to give you influence that would require stability. You are not heavy-hearted, you are heavy capacity. There is a difference. One drains you, the other grounds you. You are learning to stand firm without becoming rigid, to carry truth without becoming harsh. This understanding settles something in you. You stop asking to be relieved of every burden and start asking for wisdom to carry what matters well. That is leadership language. That is maturity speaking. You were built for this weight, not because you are exceptional in your own strength, but because you are supported by grace that meets you where pressure increases. What once intimidated you no longer defines you. You have been shaped, strengthened, and steadied. And now, as responsibility continues to unfold, you carry it not with fear, but with reverence, knowing the weight did not arrive to crush you, but to confirm who you were always designed to become. This is no longer a private decision. What has been forming quietly now asks for a public yes, not for performance, not for approval, but for alignment. Destiny reaches a point where it must be acknowledged outwardly, or it will remain partially activated inwardly. Silence served you before. Now clarity requires declaration. Think of a king stepping into light after years of preparation. The crown existed long before the ceremony, but the ceremony marked recognition, not to convince the king, but to signal transition. That is where you are. Your private obedience has shaped you. Now your public agreement gives it direction. You have already said yes internally many times. You adjusted habits. You released old versions. You endured fire. But there is power in confirmation. When intention becomes declaration, momentum accelerates. Heaven honors alignment that is no longer hidden behind hesitation. This public yes does not require a stage. It requires sincerity. It is not loud confidence. It is settled commitment. You are not announcing arrival. You are affirming direction. And that affirmation creates accountability that strengthens resolve. Imagine a ship finally leaving the harbor. Supplies are loaded. Maps are studied. The crew is trained. But until the ropes are released, the ship remains stationary. Your yes is the release. The waters ahead may still be unpredictable, but movement begins only when the tie is cut. You are not asked to impress anyone. You are asked to agree with truth. Agreement shifts authority. When you agree with what God has revealed, Protection activates, provision aligns, and resistance loses leverage. Destiny responds to alignment faster than it responds to desire. There is also humility here. Public yes does not mean public perfection. It means visible obedience. It allows others to witness faith in motion, not flawlessness on display. Your journey becomes testimony not because it is polished, but because it is real. As the ancient words recorded in the book of Romans, chapter 10, verse 9, declare, if you declare with your mouth, Jesus is Lord, and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Declaration matters. Belief anchors the heart. Declaration aligns the path. What is spoken confirms what is believed. This principle does not stop at salvation, it continues through purpose. What you declare shapes what you walk into. This is why I invite you now to respond outwardly. If this message confirms what God has been doing in you, take a moment to engage. Like the message so it can reach others standing at similar crossroads. Share it with someone who needs courage to say yes. Subscribe to remain connected as this journey continues unfolding. And if you feel led, consider supporting this work through donation, not as obligation, but as partnership. Think of it as fueling a lighthouse. The light does not move, but it guides many safely through dark waters. Your support keeps that light visible for those still navigating uncertainty. Your generosity is not about money alone. It is about agreement. It says, I value truth. I invest in clarity. I support what strengthens faith. What you give does not disappear. It multiplies in reach, impact, and encouragement beyond what you may ever see. Now comes the moment of personal response. I want you to comment the words, I choose alignment. This phrase is intentional. It is not about excitement. It is about direction. By commenting it, you are marking this as your public yes. You are acknowledging that destiny is no longer something you contemplate privately, but something you commit to visibly. This declaration strengthens resolve and invites accountability. Your yes does not make life easier. It makes life clearer. Clarity reduces inner conflict. Direction restores energy. When alignment is chosen, confusion loses authority. You may feel a mixture of peace and gravity right now. That is normal. Important decisions carry weight, but that weight is not fear. It is responsibility settling correctly. You are not stepping into pressure alone. You are stepping into partnership with grace. This public yes also invites refinement to continue. Growth does not stop here, but now growth has direction. You are no longer circling purpose. You are walking into it. Remember, crowns are not worn to elevate ego, but to signal responsibility. Your yes is not about being seen. It is about being faithful. Heaven responds to faithfulness with provision, timing, and protection that cannot be manufactured. You are not late. You are not behind. You are right on time for this decision. The journey ahead will require consistency, humility, and courage. But you are not starting unprepared. You are starting aligned. Let your yes be simple. Let it be honest. Let it be visible. And then keep walking, one faithful step at a time, trusting that what you have agreed to will continue to unfold with clarity, strength, and grace. Obedience activates things you could never force. not immediately visible, not loudly announced, but decisively released. When you finally align fully, something shifts beneath the surface of your life. The resistance does not vanish, but it changes texture. Confusion gives way to clarity. Striving gives way to steadiness. What once felt blocked begins to move. This activation is subtle at first. It feels like internal order. Thoughts organize. Priorities settle. You stop questioning every step. Not because you suddenly know everything, but because you trust the direction. Obedience quiets inner debate. When decision is resolved, energy is conserved instead of scattered. You begin to notice timing improving. Conversations happen at the right moment. Opportunities appear without chasing. Provision arrives through unexpected channels. None of this feels dramatic. It feels appropriate. This is how divine alignment often works. It does not impress the ego. It supports the assignment. After obedience, discernment sharpens further. You sense what to engage and what to decline with greater ease. Discernment becomes instinct rather than effort. You are no longer guessing, you are responding. This responsiveness keeps you from wasting strength on what looks good but is not assigned. Peace also changes character. It becomes durable, not dependent on circumstances, but anchored in direction, even when challenges arise. Panic does not dominate. You feel weight, but not chaos. Pressure, but not paralysis. Obedience stabilizes emotional ground because you are no longer fighting yourself. Another activation is authority. Not authority over people, but authority within yourself. You stop negotiating with fear. You stop needing permission to obey what you already know. This inner authority makes your presence heavier, your words steadier, your silence meaningful. People feel it without you explaining it. Obedience also activates protection, not insulation from difficulty, but preservation within it. You begin to notice how narrowly certain things miss you, how situations resolve before becoming destructive, how wisdom interrupts impulses that once would have led you into regret. God guards what aligns with His will. Provision activates differently too. It stops feeling like something you must secure and starts feeling like something that meets you as you move. You still work, you still plan, but anxiety around supply loosens. You realize that obedience positions you where provision already flows. As the ancient words recorded in the book of Isaiah, chapter 1, verse 19, declare, "If you are willing and obedient, you will eat the good things of the land." That promise connects willingness with obedience, not perfection. Willingness opens the heart. Obedience directs the feet. Together, they position you to receive what cannot be accessed through resistance. The good things are not rewards for effort. They are outcomes of alignment. After obedience, relationships recalibrate. Some deepen, others distance naturally. You stop forcing connection. God rearranges proximity according to purpose. New alliances form without strain. Old ones adjust without drama. You recognize that alignment attracts alignment without manipulation. You also notice a new restraint. You do not rush to explain yourself. You do not need constant affirmation. Validation loses urgency because alignment provides assurance. You know why you are moving, even if others do not. That knowing steadies you when misunderstood. Momentum returns, but it is controlled, not frantic, not pressured. It feels sustainable. You move forward without burning out because you are no longer carrying internal resistance. Obedience removes friction between intention and action. Another activation is clarity about what is next. Not the entire future, but the next faithful step. Obedience rarely reveals the whole map. It illuminates the next stretch. And once you walk it, the next becomes clear. This keeps you dependent without being insecure. You may be surprised by how ordinary this feels. Obedience does not always feel like triumph. Sometimes it feels like normalcy restored. Like breathing freely after holding tension too long. You realize how much energy resistance consumed once it is gone. You are also less reactive. Situations that once triggered urgency now invite discernment. You respond instead of react. That response carries authority because it is not rushed. Wisdom has space to speak. Obedience activates patience without passivity. You wait actively. You prepare while trusting timing. You stop forcing outcomes and start stewarding process. This balance keeps you from both stagnation and exhaustion. This stage is marked by consistency. Small decisions matter more than dramatic gestures. Faithfulness becomes your language. You show up. You follow through. You remain aligned even when results are delayed. And that consistency compounds strength. You begin to understand that obedience was never about restriction. It was about release. Release of clarity. Release of provision. Release of authority. Release of peace. What activated after obedience was not something external alone. It was coherence within you. Life does not become effortless, but it becomes ordered. And order creates strength. You are no longer fighting the direction of your own calling. You are walking with it. This is what activates after obedience: alignment that sustains you, authority that steadies you, and momentum that does not collapse under pressure. You are moving now, not driven by fear or ambition, but guided by clarity. And that guidance will continue, step by step, as long as obedience remains your foundation. What has begun cannot be undone. Destiny is no longer approaching you, it is fully engaged. You are no longer standing at the edge or crossing a line. You are walking inside alignment now. The shift you sensed earlier has stabilized into direction. This is not excitement. This is establishment. You may notice that life has not suddenly become easier, but it has become clearer. Confusion has lost its authority. Even unanswered questions no longer disturb your footing. You are grounded in purpose rather than outcomes. That grounding is what makes this stage irreversible. Destiny does not fully engage when you feel ready. It engages when you are willing. Willing to obey without guarantees. Willing to move without applause. Willing to trust what you cannot yet explain. That willingness has already been proven in you. Now destiny responds by unfolding. You are discovering that identity feels settled here. You are no longer trying to become someone. You are learning how to be who you already are consistently. Stability replaces striving. Integrity replaces urgency. Faithfulness replaces pressure. This is the stage where backward glances lose appeal. Not because the past was bad, but because it no longer fits. You do not romanticize who you were. You respect who you were for carrying you here. But your eyes stay forward naturally now. Alignment does that. It reorients desire. You will still face resistance, but it will feel different, less personal, less destabilizing. Resistance now confirms direction rather than confusing it. You do not spiral when challenged. You assess, respond, and continue. Authority has settled into your posture. Destiny fully engaged also means accountability increases. Not condemnation, but stewardship. You are entrusted with more clarity. So you must walk carefully. Precision matters. Obedience remains essential. Not dramatic obedience, but daily alignment in small things. This is where humility protects you. You remember that everything unfolding is sustained by grace, not personal strength alone. That remembrance keeps you grounded. You remain teachable. You stay responsive. You do not outgrow dependence on God. You deepen it. Humility keeps your hands open rather than clenched. You recognize progress as stewardship, not ownership. Every gift remains entrusted, never possessed. This awareness prevents pride from poisoning growth. Gratitude becomes your posture. Obedience, your rhythm. By staying low before God, you remain flexible and safe to advance without losing alignment. Dependence on God matures with responsibility. You stop seeking control and start practicing trust. Prayer becomes consultation, not crisis management. Listening outweighs speaking. Waiting feels purposeful, not passive. This deeper reliance stabilizes decisions, slows reactions, and anchors courage when outcomes remain uncertain, reminding you that direction matters more than speed. As was written in the book of Philippians, chapter 1, verse 6, "He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus." That promise anchors this stage. Destiny is not sustained by your consistency alone. God finishes what He starts. Your role is faithfulness. His role is completion. That partnership removes anxiety about outcomes. You are not responsible for finishing perfectly. You are responsible for staying aligned. You are beginning to sense legacy forming quietly. Not fame, not recognition, impact. The kind that alters environments over time. The kind that changes people through steadiness, not spectacle. This is influence rooted in substance. You will also notice that discernment continues to deepen. Choices feel simpler because filters are clearer. You do not debate what violates alignment. You do not overthink what honors it. Simplicity emerges as wisdom matures. Destiny fully engaged does not isolate you from emotion. You still feel deeply. But emotions no longer dictate direction. They inform, not govern. That emotional maturity allows you to lead without becoming hardened or overwhelmed. You are no longer chasing confirmation. You walk with conviction. Confirmation follows obedience now, not before it. This frees you from dependency on signs and approval. You trust the work God is doing within you. This stage also invites patience. Fulfillment unfolds in layers. You do not rush harvest. You steward growth. You allow timing to mature outcomes so they last. What comes next will build on what has stabilized now. You are not at the end. You are at the beginning of sustainability. What was once fragile is now fortified. What once required constant effort now flows through discipline and clarity. Destiny is not loud here. It is steady. It does not announce itself. It advances. And you advance with it. Grounded, aware, and aligned. You are not becoming unstoppable because you are powerful alone. You are unshakable because you are rooted. Rooted people endure storms without losing direction. That is who you are now. What has begun will continue. What has engaged will unfold. And what God has aligned will endure. As we come to the end of this journey together, take a moment to notice what has shifted inside you. Not emotion alone, but understanding. Not excitement alone, but clarity. Words like these are not meant to pass through you quickly. They are meant to settle, to echo, to accompany you as you continue walking forward. If something here resonated, it is because it aligned with something already stirring within you. This message was never meant to elevate a voice. It was meant to strengthen yours. You are the one who must walk out what has been revealed. You are the one who will carry alignment into ordinary days. Quiet decisions, unseen moments. And that is where destiny is lived most faithfully, not in grand declarations, but in consistent obedience. If this message helped you name what you have been feeling, take a simple step of response. Liking this video or post may seem small, but it helps this word reach others who are standing at similar crossroads, searching for language to describe what God is doing in them. Sometimes a single share becomes confirmation for someone who felt alone in their struggle. If you know someone who has been wrestling with purpose, transition, or obedience, consider sharing this with them, not as instruction, but as encouragement. Let it be a reminder that they are not late, not broken, not forgotten, that destiny does not rush, but it does call. Subscribing is not about following a channel. It is about staying connected to a flow of messages that reinforce clarity, faith, and alignment. Growth requires reinforcement. Truth heard once inspires. Truth revisited stabilizes. Staying connected helps keep direction clear when life becomes noisy again. And if you feel led to support this work in a tangible way, do so freely and thoughtfully. Giving is not obligation, it is agreement. It is saying, I value this. I want it to continue reaching others. Support helps sustain the time, effort, and care that go into creating messages meant to strengthen faith rather than entertain distraction. Before you go, I invite you to leave a comment, not to perform, but to mark the moment. Write something simple, honest, and personal. A sentence that reflects what you are taking with you from this message. Comments are not just engagement, they are testimony. Others read them and realize they are not alone in what they are feeling. Remember this as you move forward. Clarity does not remove challenge, but it removes confusion. Alignment does not guarantee ease, but it guarantees direction. And direction changes everything over time. You do not need to rush. You do not need to prove anything. You only need to remain faithful to what you now understand. Destiny unfolds through steady steps, not sudden leaps. Thank you for being present, attentive, and open. Carry what you've received with humility and courage. Walk it out slowly, honestly, and consistently. And as you continue forward, may clarity guard your decisions. May peace steady your steps. And may obedience keep you aligned, one faithful day at a time.